Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late getting started today. Technical difficulties. Um, as you can see, I'm not in my usual office. So last week we started talking about training two dogs together to walk together, especially when you have one dog who's reactive. So a lot of you have asked, okay, well, now that I've been working with my reactive dog and they're doing pretty well, how can I walk them with my other dog? Because right now, when I walk the two dogs together, they both behave not so well. More pulling, more barking, that kind of thing. So last week we covered a little bit of an overview and talked about first steps of working on walking the dogs together. So last week we talked about having two people, one each with a leash, and starting to practice the dog's walking skills together, but without you having to handle both leashes at once. That's kind of a lot of work. This week we're going to talk about how to use treats when you're training two dogs at once. So ultimately, if your goal is to walk two dogs by yourself, so you have two leashes, you'll want to be able to reward behavior that you like for both dogs, and you don't want them, lunging for each other's treats or fighting over treats. We have three dogs here, and they all resource guard. They will all fight over treats if we're not careful. And if we hadn't done any training, it would probably be frequent. So we have just some basic games that you can play with your two dogs that I'll show you today. So you can start building up some kind of wait your turn behavior, get them to wait. All right, let's see. Let's go to the slides here. All right, so training two dogs to walk together, waiting for treats. If someone can just let me know if my audio is okay. I don't have my normal setup today, so I'm on the webcam. Hopefully you can hear me. Okay, so last week, and I wanted to reiterate this a little bit, we talked about whether you should try to walk your dogs together. And some of you, this might not be a good decision. If you have two really big, strong dogs, and if they both lunged or you ran into a loose dog, you don't feel like you could hold on to them, or you couldn't do it without being pulled down and being injured, then probably walking the two dogs together isn't the way to go. If your dogs fight over food to the point of injuring each other, then working with treats with the two dogs together on a walk also might be a little bit risky. And so we will talk about how to help them learn to wait their turn today. But if you've got serious resource guarders who will fight, like really fight and hurt each other, then this might not be worth it to you. So just some things to think about before getting started. Now, you remember last week we talked about how walking dogs together requires both new dog skills and new human skills. So it's not just our dogs who have to know what to do, we have to know what to do too. Now, the dog skills we talked about that they have to do together, they have to be able to walk on a loose leash together, which really means they have to be able to walk on a loose leash alone first with you. So if they can't individually walk how you'd like them to on leash, then it's not going to be better when you put them together. So make sure you have that behavior trained before you try to do this with two dogs. You'd like some on cue behaviors that will be helpful on a walk. So look at me, or let's go, or find it. Especially if one of your dogs is reactive, you're going to want to be able to ask them to do something other than react. And then wait for your treat. So if you're using food as a positive reinforcer, you need to be able to deliver treats to one dog at a time without the second dog going for the food and starting a fight. So this is what we're talking about today, is this skill of just wait your turn. And this is really handy just in any multi-dog household, even if you're not planning to walk your dogs together. All right, so human skills. Managing two leashes, remember, we're going to talk about that more next week. And I mentioned last week that you also need to practice giving food or whatever reinforcer you're using to two dogs at once, and doing it sometimes fairly quickly. So those are two things that are also kind of involved in this week's video. Okay. So some considerations before we dive into the videos of training dogs to wait their turn. That one, again, is safety. Do the dogs fight over food? It's pretty common for dogs to, growl or snap at each other if they encroach on each other's, food bowl or something. But if you have dogs that really throw down and put holes in each other, puncture wounds, you end up at the vet, then this is risky and you may choose not to do this. Or if you do decide you want to train both dogs together using food, muzzle training would be a good idea. How you deliver food is going to matter. Today, we're focusing on delivering by hand, which is, allows you to just get the food right to the dog's mouth. If you're going to be throwing food on the ground or something, then that can complicate matters. And we'll talk about that in a future session. But as you can imagine, if you're throwing food on the ground, both dogs might go for it. All right. I'm just going to check really quickly that my video stream is working. One moment, since I don't have any comments to let me know. Yeah, if anyone's watching, just pop a comment below and it'll come up in the software I'm using that you can hear me or the video's working okay. Before I go on, I just want to make sure. Okay. Okay, and then a final consideration that I want you to kind of watch for in the upcoming videos here is keeping those noses as far apart as you can when you're delivering treats to two dogs. You never want to have, Nancy, do you see, thank you, Nancy, do you see slides by any chance? Okay, you see noses, perfect. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure how good my internet is here, so I'm a little bit worried about that, but we'll see. If the recording, if it isn't good in the recording here, I'll start recording here on my other software. Then I can clean up the recording and post that again later. Okay, so I'll get into some video in just a second, but I want you to think about keeping your dog's noses apart from each other if you're going to be using food. So you never want to have one treat in your hand or treats in one hand and have two dog noses right at that hand. That's a recipe for a squabble, for dogs biting each other, potentially dogs biting your hand. So you're going to see in the following videos that we're kind of maintaining some distance between the dogs, even though we need them close enough that we could be walking with them together. All right, so these are the basic steps I'm going to show you guys today, teaching Wait Your Turn. First, we're going to show, I think Melissa's going to be showing us how to deliver treats at the same time to two dogs, if it is safe to do so. Then we're going to introduce a little bit of a delay for each dog. So you get a treat, now you get a treat, but there's not much wait, just a little bit of a wait. And the treats will be visible, which provide kind of a visual prompt to your dog, the one that's waiting, like, oh, that's my treat, it's coming. And then we're going to increase the delay, so they're waiting longer, and practice without having that treat visible for the second dog, because you won't always be able to do that when you're out on a walk. All right, so step one. First, you're going to do two treats, two hands at the same time. And you're going to have your hands held relatively far apart. Remember, you don't want your dog's noses close together. And if you have, I'll show you an example of this in the video, but if you're worried about your dogs getting into a fight over the food, but you think you can safely train them to walk together so they're not such bad guarders that they're fighting and hurting each other, you may want to start with the dogs tethered or on either side of a gate. This is how I started with my own two large dogs, because they guard food from each other pretty enthusiastically. We started with dogs tethered. All right, I'm going to get into the example videos now. I hope this plays smoothly for you. Okay, so there was two treats, two hands, same time. And I'm going to do the same thing, I think, here. So you see the dogs are on either side of either me or Melissa. They're not right in front of us, side to side. So I'm going to play that again. Treat, same time, 2 hands, some distance apart. Those are my 2 dogs. They have a lot of practice with this. Here's a tethered example. So you see they can't get to each other. So that's a pretty, that's a good option if you're worried about resource guarding. And actually, if you go back to this video, you can, well, I don't know if you can see very well, but Jasper, who's the lighter colored dog who's sitting, he's actually tethered in this video because our third dog, Pancake, was kind of milling about. And I didn't want him to try to lunge at Pancake if he came too close. All right, so that was step 1. 2 treats at the same time. Keep your hands far apart. All right, now we're going to introduce just a short delay, but still have both treats visible so that our second dog, who's getting the treat a little later, has that kind of signal that, hey, you've got a treat coming, just hold on a second. So when I say short delay, I'm talking like 1 second, maybe 2. So Zuma and see how the treat is visible for Pepper. Let's go back and watch that again. Okay, so here she's already putting the treat into Zuma's mouth. And then just delays that treat for Pepper just a second. All right, and if you have any questions while I'm going through this, please put them below the video. Wherever you're watching this, they should pop up for me. All right, step 3. Now we are going to increase the delay a little bit, asking whoever the second dog is to wait a little longer. And we're not going to have that visual prompt. We're going to keep the second treat hidden until we're ready to deliver it. I should mention that it's a good idea to practice this both ways. So both of your dogs practice being the one who's waiting for the treats. Unless, you know, if you have one dog who is much more guardy, for lack of a better word, more impatient than the other dog, you may want to focus on them more, but it's not a bad idea for both dogs to practice being the one who's waiting. All right, so some examples of second treat hidden and longer delays. So she hands one from her treat bag to Zuma, then pauses, then reaches into her treat bag and gets one for Pepper. Zuma, see nothing visible, no treats visible. Reaches into her treat bag, delivers to Pepper. All right, any questions so far on these first couple steps? We're just introducing that little bit of weight. And remember, if your dogs are really new to this and you think they might fight, they guard things, I would tether them. All right, once you've got this going in the house and it's no problem, we're going to change location. A backyard is handy, but any quiet outdoor location is a good place to start. And we're not really doing leashes yet, although if you're comfortable handling 2 leashes already, then, you know, go ahead and do that with them leashed. So here Melissa's outside and just doing that little bit of weight. And you notice that she's starting with both treats visible because we made one thing harder, the location. So we're going to make something easier, which is that visual prompt. Nice long pause there, and then he gets his stuff. And now we have the treat not visible. So now Pepper got it first, and then Zuma did. Oh, thanks, Nancy. Thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. Okay, once you've got your dogs able to wait, you know, at least a few seconds, and you may want to build up to 5 to 10 seconds, depending on how fast you are at getting treats ready. Once you've got them waiting in an outdoor location for treats, so they can wait while the other dog gets something, now you can introduce some basic training to practice, for you too, to practice cueing something and rewarding one dog at a time and then rewarding the other dog. Something your dog already knows really well. So could be a hand touch, could be, you know, what a lot of people call the name game. I call it watch usually, but you say their name and they look at you and you reward them for looking at you when you say their name. So let's look at some examples. So here are my dogs. I'm doing a hand touch for Juno, and then she gets a treat, and Jasper knows to wait. Now he gets to do a hand touch for a treat. And now Jasper goes first and then Juno. So we're practicing both ways. Both dogs are practicing waiting. I can try to do a behavior at once if I'd like. So hand touch with both dogs at the same time. Okay, here the audio is not going to be great because this was taken on my phone and you can hear road noise in the background, but this is kind of that name game. I'm going to say Juno's name, wait, she looks at me, she gets the treat. It's not a bad idea for your dogs to know that their name means they are the ones getting a treat. And if it's not their name, they're not the one getting a treat right now. So I said Juno, she looks at me, she gets a treat. I said Jasper, I don't know if you can hear that. So I said Jasper, and then rewarded him for looking at me. Jasper. So Juno knows when I say Jasper, she's not the one getting the treat. All right, get through these. Just covered those, change of scenery, training. All right. So those are the first steps I'd recommend starting with, as long as your dogs aren't likely to get into a brawl over treats. A reminder that this is our free Facebook support group, facebook.com/groups/dogkindsupport. And if you're not already a member, you're invited to join us there. It's a group that specializes and focuses on fear, aggression, and reactivity. And it's a really nice group of people. Does anyone have any questions? This was a quick one today, but if you're working on this, I'd like you to take it slow. All right, everybody. That's all I had for you today. Just those little games, getting dogs to just wait for a second or two to get their treats so that you can train them together using food as your positive reinforcement. I will see you next week. We're going to be talking about wrangling 2 leashes at the same time and what kind of equipment we like to use and how we like to handle multiple leashes so that you can then start to work on actually walking your 2 dogs together. All right. Have a wonderful week, everyone. I'll see you next week.